Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Uh, Mr. Secretary, some of the civic lessons we have aren't as helpful as others. I wanted to talk about the 5G spectrum rollout. Obviously, I think calls for the need for greater coordination, sometimes between federal agencies. Some of this is new stuff, and we learn as we go, but the public discussion, I guess we'd call it, between FAA and FCC wasn't particularly helpful. It was probably avoidable and not particularly productive. The resolution to 5G for airports and air carriers is going to take some time to resolve, and FAA has some temporary stopgap measures in place. But obviously, how are we working with the White House and the other and FCC to resolve these 5G spectrum issues, and how do we avoid this in the future? Because obviously 5G is going to take a while as it begins to be incorporated, but the lessons for 6G and beyond as well.
Thank you, Congressman. As you noted, the most important thing is going to be coordination. The last minute and urgent issues that arose at the beginning of this year were years in the making. And what we've seen in places that have been able to have the safe and efficient coexistence of 5G cell technology and aviation operations is a strong level of communication and coordination between telecommunications and aviation regulators well in advance of any kind of deployment. I will say that we've made significant progress since January, with the FAA, of course, principally focused on its core mission of safety, but with the dialogue with telecommunications industry as well as regulators on how to ensure that that's compatible with the 5G rollout. That communication and interaction has allowed us to refine the risk model around runways. It's allowed wireless companies to turn on the majority of their transmitters, activating about 90% of their installed network of transmitters, but recognizing that there remain more transmitters that are economically very important for them to be able to activate, where that needs to be deconflicted with the safety imperatives on the aviation side. So the long-term solution is to establish a new performance standard for altimeters in the presence of that C-band spectrum. In the meantime, based on what I would say is an entirely voluntary arrangement that reflects, I think, great credit on the willingness of telecom operators, aircraft equipment manufacturers, airlines, and different federal agencies to cooperate. We've been able to work to ensure that modifications like filters and other things that can be applied to the aircraft are done as quickly as possible while also refining the model. There will be more instances, as you mentioned, whether we're talking about 5G or other spectrum issues as we go. And so we are undertaking efforts to communicate more closely than I think has ever been done in the past with relevant players to include NTIA and Commerce, the FCC, the White House, in some circumstances DOD, and anybody else on the federal side with involvement here, as well as ensuring continued healthy dialogue on the industry side.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that there's also communications with those in the technology side of this as the industry expands and moves at literally the speed of light towards 5G isn't done. I mean, there's a lot more that's going to be incorporated, but this is a worldwide issue. So we want U.S. travelers to feel safe wherever they're going, and I think there is some lack of information and concern about how this is playing out in other countries at the same time.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that we are prepared and aware of forthcoming technologies, because again, the spectrum is only going to become more important from a transportation perspective and industry perspective. We need to be able to identify any of these issues well in advance of anything like the events of January.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Mr. Womack.